Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're down at a friend's place and we're just doing a bit of fencing for him, and I just thought I'd show you this old fence here. Now this fence is, we're just pulling this one down. This is probably 80 years old now. A lot of the timber posts have rotted off now and been strengthened up with star pickets, and they've rotted off too. These are jam tree, or cut from jam trees. That's an acacia. I'm not quite sure what sort of acacia it is. They grew all through this area and they were really popular as fence posts. They did not grow straight, so there's almost no straight fence posts. Each fence post, so we've got 2 lines of barbed wire on the top here, we've got 3 lines of plain wire, and then we've got this rabbit netting here. So this was a rabbit proof fence, and it's buried about 4 inches into the ground down the bottom. Considering the age of it, this netting is still in really good condition. Now whilst all of the wooden, or most of the wooden posts have rotted off at ground level, the rest of the post is still really solid. So these were a great post to use, and they last for ages. They would have been really hard work to put in. Every post has a hand dug hole. It has 4 holes drilled through it, 3 for the plain wires, and then the 2 barbed wires are held on with a wire that loops around this side of it, goes through the post here and then back onto the barbed wire. Now the other thing interesting about this fence is this piece of barbed wire here. Most modern barbed wire is a twin strand wire like this one. So there's 2 high tensile wires with the barbs weaved between it, and then this one has a twist in it and it stops the barbs sliding around. This one is just a single strand of wire with the barb tied onto it, and then there's a little bit of a crimp in there to stop the barb sliding up and down. I haven't seen wire like this before, so it's just a little bit interesting and different. Anyway, I'd better get back to work and finish pulling this fence down. Having a post hole digger makes digging the holes so much easier. It's great for loosening up all the soil, but afterwards you still need to clean the holes out to get all the loose dirt out with a shovel. So each post and strut gets set up in the ground, and we check to make sure they're level. Then the posts get 4 bags of rapid set concrete around them, and the struts get 2 bags. Okay, so we've put our strainer posts in. We're using steel strainer posts with braces on them. Next, we've laid out a line of barbed wire. This is going to be the top wire on the fence, and we're using this as a line as to where we put the star pickets. So next we're going to strain up this line of barbed wire. It's already tied off down the other end. So to use these hand wire strainers, they come in 2 parts. The strainer part, and then there's a chain that it walks up to pull it tight. The first thing we're going to do is put the chain around the post. They've got a hook. The chains come with a hook on one end and a wire clamp on the other end. you can hook the chain on, the hook onto the chain. I normally just run it through the wire clamp like that. So this is the strainer end of the assembly, and this is a wire clamp here. When you squeeze it like that, it opens this jaw up. The wire then sits in that spot there, and you just squeeze that back up. The next thing that we need to do is hook one of these jaws on here onto the chain. So they just hook through like that, and then as we move the lever backwards and forwards, those little hooks just walk up this chain, pulling everything else tight. Okay, when you're lining your pickets up with the barbed wire, we want it sitting about 10 millimeters, just slightly less than a finger width off. If you sit it right on it, every time you push it out a little bit further and you end up with a curve in your fence. So just sit it slightly off. The stock pressure on this fence is from this side, so we want the wire to be pushing against the star picket. This just makes the fence a little bit stronger. Also, the star picket, because of the way it's shaped, will bend this way more easily than it will bend that way. So yeah, that just makes it a bit stronger when the stock are pushing on it from this side. Okay, today ramming the pickets in is a really easy job. We've got a pneumatic picket rammer. You lift it up and the post goes in here. There's an air hammer that sits in here, and there's a trigger here to turn it on and off. You do need a reasonable sized compressor to run this. We've got a petrol engine 3-cylinder compressor mounted on the trailer, and this makes it so much easier than ramming them in by hand. So I'll start the compressor and I'll show you how this process works now. Now, it is much easier if you've got two people to do this. If you've got one person to drive the ute, pile of star pickets on the back, the rammer sitting on the back, then somebody can drive the ute along. I can grab a picket, pace it out, drop the next picket, pick the rammer up off the back of the ute, hammer it straight in and move on to the next one. It saves me carrying pickets out and laying them out in advance and then coming backwards and forwards so much. when you're hammering your posts in, you want to hammer them in to a depth where the bottom hole is just above the ground level. You're going to tie the bottom wire of your fence onto there, and ideally you don't want the bottom wire of your fence touching the ground. If it does, that's where it's going to rust and break the bottom wire before the rest of the fence is worn out. Okay, to tie the wire onto the post, we bring the wire round the post and back under itself. We want to keep it reasonably tight. We twist it back over the top here, but we want to stick this end back down inside where we have come around here and pull that down. This part is actually quite important, so we get a loop around it like that. Now if we don't do this and we are pulling too hard on the fence, if we've just wrapped it around, it can come undone. This helps it to pull itself tight rather than undo. After we've done that, we come back up underneath the first wire and just wrap it around the fence wire here. And the tighter and neater we can get it, the better. Once we have wrapped it a couple of times around, we put a little crank handle in and we use this to turn the wire, and it just breaks off like that. That gives us a really nice neat knot with no sharp edges, no bits sticking out that the stock are going to poke their eye on or injure themselves on. Now to unroll the wire, we've got this little pipe frame here. So it is just a piece of water pipe going through the middle of the roll of the wire with the A-frame on it. And you can either stand here and just walk along with this, or this one also hooks onto the back of the quad bike if you're doing a lot of fencing. We don't have the quad bike down here today, so we're just going to be walking this wire out. If you're doing any fencing at all, even if it's only a small amount, I would strongly recommend you make one of these up. It makes life so much easier. And this one's just made out of old bits of galvanized water pipe. You can make it out of whatever size pipe you like, as long as it is small enough to fit through the center of your roll of wire. Okay, when we get to the end of a roll and we need to join our new roll on, I normally unroll it all the way and then just leave the piece of pipe sitting across it. This stops it springing back and rolling up. I then normally join the bottom and top wires first, and then I'm going to show you now how to tie it off, how to tie the join. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is put two bends, a bend in each end of the wire, and I normally do it a hand span plus my thumb in both pieces of wire. We then pull this just a little bit tight. Pull them over like that, so we've got the two bends linked together. We then pick one piece of wire. I normally do the right hand one, just that's my habit, and we want to twist that right round the first piece of wire. So we've got this one coming and looping around, and this one just coming up and through like that. This is a really strong way to tie wire, and this will not come undone, but it's also a reasonably neat way to do it. So we want to pull that one round fairly tight. I normally just hold it here with a pair of pliers while I'm doing this. Pull this one right round and then just wrap it round like this 3 or 4 times. put a 90-degree bend in the end and just snap it off like we do with our when we're tying off at the fence posts. This one we are just going to wrap it back around itself. Three or four times. Put a bend in it and break it off. That knot there will not come undone. You will break the wire before that comes undone. It's a nice smooth way to do it. There's no sharp edges at the end of it. It takes a bit of practice. I'm a bit out of practice at the moment, so these aren't quite as neat as normal, but this is a really good way to tie the wire off. So to strain up the ring lock, we want to be able to pull evenly on all of the wires right the way across it. So we use this odd looking device here, which is a ring lock strainer. It clamps across all wires and allows us to tighten the whole lot evenly in one go. Now this one's a homemade one, it works fine. You can buy these too. This one's always a bit complicated to work out which way round it goes. You can also make your own out of a couple of pieces of 4x2 with some bolts through it to clamp the wire between the two pieces of timber. So to put this one on, we lie it down and take the top piece off. This other piece sits in under the wire. It's a little bit tricky to do this one-handed, and we want to keep it reasonably straight, so we've got a wire down here that's going to keep us square. This top piece hooks on like this. Then we run the chain that we're going to use to pull it tight through here, and it clips on the backside underneath here. Then you can hook your ute or whatever vehicle you happen to have onto the other end of the chain. This guy, where we're working today, there's a heap of machinery around, so we're just using the backhoe to do this. Most farms don't have access to a backhoe, but it does make it quite easy to tension the wire up like this. These funny looking things here are called tie fasts. They're a piece of wire with a hook in one end of it. You can buy these by the bucketful. You can also make them yourself. So we use these for tying the wire onto the posts. Now we use 3 on each piece of ring lock, each post for the ring lock, and 1 for the barbed wire on each post. So what we do is we put it through the hole in the post and hook the hook round the wire on the ring lock. We then bend this around like this over the top, and then they come with a special looking tool that looks a bit like this, and we just use this tool to wind it around the wire. We end up with a knot that looks like that. So we've got the hook under here, we've gone through, round, back over the hook and round the wire on this side. These if you do them like that, these will never come undone. They're a real pain to try and cut off as well, because you always end up with little hooks and stuff left stuck on in places. So this is a really quick way to start tying your fence off. Fencing can be a very satisfying job. It's nice at the end of the day to be able to look down your brand new fence and see a job that you can feel proud of. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little video. I hope you found it useful. I will do another video a little bit later on fencing without all the expensive equipment, how to do it with just the more basic stuff. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye!